before I start filming, look at the moon. Look at the moon. Can you focus on the moon and not my dirty lounge? She's so beautiful. I love her. Damon gave me the rest of his chocolate eclair coffee frappuccino to finish off. Love that man. Oh my god, is my magic 8 ball working? We're halfway through the year. Will the second half of 2021 be better than the first half? If it lands on something, I will be so surprised. Ah! It says positively! I'm too scared to move it, but can you guys see that? You probably can't. It says positively. It says, you can see the whole dice. It says positively. You heard it here first. Magic 8 Ball says second half of 2021 is going to be positively better than the first half. But before we move into the second half of the year, let's talk about the first half of the year. Let's do a little wrap up. Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Annie, and seeing as it is about halfway through the year, I thought it would be a good time to do my mid-year freakout tag, and also just like a little bit of a wrap up of all of the books that I've read in the first half of 2021. Last year I did the mid-year freakout tag. This year I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I don't think I'm going to answer all of the questions, but I will be answering most of them. Mostly just want to use them as like prompts to talk about books that I've absolutely loved. So that's like really what we're here for today. But before we get into that, I thought it would be I don't really think it's fun because I had to do maths for this, but a good idea to just kind of give you guys some stats of my reading from the first half of 2021. So as of today, July 20th, as I'm filming this, I have read a total of 89 books so far this year. I'm currently like, I'm about to finish a book. So probably right after filming this, I'm gonna go and read another book, which means I will have read 90 books as of July 20th. But as of filming this right now, I've only read 89. As of the 1st of July, so actually all the books that I've read just specifically in the first half of this year, I had read 75 books. And to me, I think that is pretty good. According to Goodreads though, that's really bad, and I am insanely behind on my Goodreads challenge goal of 200 books, and every time I open Goodreads it screams at me that I am like a month behind in reading, and it's stressful and I hate it. When not listening to Goodreads, I'm proud of the 75 books that I read in the first half of this year. I think that is an incredible number. Out of these 89 books total, 17 of those were rereads, so books that I had already read before 2021. I usually try to not reread like one book in the same year, so if I read something I try not to read it for like the rest of the year. Don't know how that's gonna hold up for the rest of 2021 because I've read some really good romances in the past week that I think I will actually end up rereading, but that's usually how it works. So I count all of those 17 books towards my Goodreads goal. 13 of those books were new releases, which honestly is less than I would like. I would definitely like to be picking up more new releases than it seems that I am. So something to keep in mind for the second half of the year. Definitely am going to be trying to be conscious about picking up more new releases. In terms of like the format of my reading, 28 of those books were physical books, which really just shows that I read the majority of my books as ebooks, because that means I read 61 books as ebooks this year. I was gonna say on my phone because I really just read all my ebooks on my phone pretty much, but yeah, I've read 61 ebooks this year and only 28 physical books. I really want to try and use my library a little bit more, like not just my library app, Libby app on my phone, actually go into the library, physically get out books so I can bump my physical reads up a little bit more, because the few physical books that I've read this year have actually been pretty fun. I've been kind of enjoying it. So I don't know, it's just like, it's nostalgic. It's like going back to the good old days, you know, reading a physical book. Oh, wow, really takes me back. And then I also went ahead and tracked the genres that I've read so far this year. So out of these 89 books, I have read 2 mystery thriller books. I have read 2 books which I've classed as like general literature, kind of just like contemporary adult fiction, basically. I have read 5 classics, and I'm pretty sure all of them were short stories. And then I have read 26 fantasy books, which is honestly a lot more than I had honestly thought that I'd read. I thought I'd read absolutely like no fantasy, but I had read a decent amount of fantasy romance this year. So while the number says 26 for fantasy, the number for romance is 56, and like that's a lot. That's the majority of what I've been reading this year, which isn't surprising to me. But those 56 romance books aren't just like romance. Some of them are fantasy romance, some of them have been historical romance, some of them have been paranormal romance, all that sort of stuff. But that wasn't surprising at all to me. I knew that romance was going to be my most read genre so far. What I was surprised about was my average star rating. The first half of this year, first half of 2021, for being honest, started off pretty rough. It took me, I think, 3 months to read my first 5-star book, like my first like new 5-star book that wasn't a reread, and that was kind of depressing, and I really didn't know what my average star rating was going to be. I have an average of 2.9 stars. Rounded it up to 3, which I think kind of says it all. My first half of 2021 in terms of reading has been very average, so it's been a bit rough. But that's okay. We're soldiering on. As the Magic 8 Ball said, second half of 2021 is going to be positively better than the first half. Let's hope that counts in terms of reading as well. I probably should have specified, but it doesn't matter. She's been broken for years now. So for the mid-year freakout tag, I am going to answer the questions talking only about the books I read before July. So I will not be talking about every single book that I've read yet. Keep that in mind, because I feel like if you follow me on Instagram and you hear me answer these questions, you'll probably be very surprised why I'm not talking about a bunch of books, but that's because I read them this month, okay? So we'll talk about them at another point in another video coming up sometime soon. Anyway, let's start answering the questions. First question is best book that you have read so far in 2021. Have to mention my first 5-star read of the year, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is YA fantasy, kind of gives dystopian vibes. We follow Paige, who I can't remember what they're called. Basically, everyone in this world, well, not everyone in this world, but people in this world have like spiritual powers. So Paige is a dream walker. She can jump into like other people's minds, other people's spirit spaces. It's a very powerful ability, and not because of her powerful ability, but because she is one of the people who can do this kind of magic, we'll say, for lack of a better word. She ends up kind of getting hunted down by this government and sent off to this camp. We'll say camp. She is introduced to, I really don't know how to say it. I want to say the Ephraim, but that might not be how you pronounce it. Basically, this race of human-like beings, but they're not human. They're a lot more powerful than humans, and I guess they kind of have access to this spiritual magic that Paige also has, but like at a very, like, a way higher level. They have way more power than Paige and any of the humans do, right? And they actually like feed off of the magic that the humans have. They like suck out their power. Little magic vampires, kind of. But they're also like I think the best word, I think when I think of them in my head, I describe them as like aliens. They're kind of like aliens, but not aliens. They look like humans anyway. Very gritty, very dark, very exciting. A very worthy 5 stars. Okay, actually kind of jumping off this question, but still kind of answering it. One of the questions in this tag is, what are the books that have made you cry so far this year? And usually when I cry reading a book, it becomes a favorite of mine. So this kind of goes off of question 1. I didn't cry reading The Bone Season, but the books that I cried to in the first half of 2021 are definitely some of my favorites. So have to mention Chain of Iron, book 2 in the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare. I did a whole reading vlog for this, and I actually think this is one of my favorite videos that I've done ever on this channel, just because I absolutely love that book so much. So if you want to go check it out, I'll leave it linked down below. That was a roller coaster of a ride. I think I cried within the first 100 pages of that too. So definitely cried reading that. That was a 5-star read for me. Next book I cried reading was Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. Also vlogged this. I don't think I really captured the mental breakdown that this book caused me to have, but this actually mentally damaged me. This book broke me. I can't even discuss it. It's the second and final book in the King of Scars duology, which is in the Grishaverse. It's the most recent installment, so don't go picking this up if you're looking to start in the Grishaverse. Start with Shadow and Bone trilogy or Six of Crows. This follows like characters from those two series, so you won't really get it and it'll just spoil you. Leigh Bardugo really does not hold back with her sequels in her duologies. Fucking brutal. First Crooked Kingdom, I should have known after Crooked Kingdom, honestly, that Rule of Wolves would have absolutely destroyed me. But it did. I actually cried for like an hour. Reading this book, it ruined me. This was one of my most anticipated releases of this year. It didn't disappoint, honestly. Even though I didn't give it 5 stars, it didn't disappoint. A recent read that I read and cried over was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is also a new release. This is a sapphic romance set in New York on a train. Kind of hard to talk about this too much without giving away spoilers, but this was Casey McQuiston's second book. It was so good. I thought nothing could top Red, White, and Royal Blue. This, I think, is infinitely better than Red, White, and Royal Blue. Never thought those words would leave my mouth, but this was so great, and the end it was so good. I cried, mostly tears of joy. So don't be scared going into it. I feel like with most of the romances that I read and I cry during, it's because of happiness and like love for the book. It's always when the characters are being sweet and really in love with each other, that's when I cry in a romance, and that's basically what happened in One Last Stop. I feel like I should also mention the Wrath and the Dawn and the Rose and the Dagger duology by Renee, ahdieh. I shed like a few tears in The Rose and the Dagger, but these are YA fantasy retellings of a classic Arabic story, and this, I haven't read YA fantasy in a while, but this took my breath away. I loved this duology so much. Read both of these in a day, back to back, super fast paced, super gripping, super dramatic and intense, good little romance subplot. Really like still can't get over the fact that I never really hear anyone talking about these books. They are so good. If you're looking for some quick YA fantasy to pick up, highly recommend these two. I absolutely obsessed with them. The next question I want to answer is, what was the biggest disappointment for the first half of 2021? And I honestly don't know if I've had a book that was like super disappointing. Okay, no, I know the one. Alright, so I think the biggest disappointment, and probably not for the reason you think, is The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, this is the third book in the From Blood and Ash series, which is a paranormal new adult romance. These are like guilty pleasure books, right? Think Twilight kind of vibes, okay? A lot of people I know really didn't like this book in terms of like the length and the plot and the pacing, even the writing. A bunch of people think that this was ghost written, which honestly, as a conspiracy theory, I can get behind. I kind of see, like, everyone made very convincing points. I could believe it. But I think this book really just disappointed me because I thought that this was the third and final book in the series. So I went into this with my heart out of my chest, fully expecting to be satisfied, and finished this book feeling content and happy with the ending of the series. I was ready for it to be wrapped up. Was ready to read some steamy scenes between Poppy, Cassian, and Kieran. And like, well, it wasn't disappointing in terms of steaminess, and I personally didn't find it too disappointing in terms of plot. I kind of enjoyed it. The ending actually gave me a panic attack because it was left on such a big cliffhanger and I had no idea what to do with myself. Turns out it's not the last book in the series. I feel like I've told this story so many times. I just didn't know that there were going to be 3 other books in this series, not including a spin-off series with other characters from like way years back in the timeline. So I was just upset after finishing this book. Like, I was unnecessarily emotional over the ending of this when I didn't have to be. The next question is, what has been the biggest surprise? And for this, I'm going to say Priceless by Miranda Silver. This is a smutty romance book, new adult, set in a college. This follows Christina, who I think is in like her first or second year of college, and right at the start of the book we kind of see her life is falling apart. Everything's just a bit of a mess. She doesn't have any money, she doesn't have any income, she's not really happy with her life, with her friends, anything like that. And after a particularly difficult day, she runs into Patrick at, I think it's a frat party, and And basically Christina and Patrick met once, I'd say about a year ago, at like out in town, and they had a very, very brief conversation. They didn't get each other's names or anything. Basically they'd been like staring at each other across the room, a lot of sexual tension. They both liked what they saw and they bumped into each other later in the night, kind of, a little bit of flirting. But Christina had a boyfriend, nothing happened, didn't see each other again for a year, and then they bump into each other again at this frat party. And I mean, Christina thinks, you know, maybe I can pick up flirting with him now that I'm single. She's recently broken up with her boyfriend, but she is entirely shocked when Patrick asks to pay her to have sex with him. I mean, like, probably not what anyone would really expect, I guess, from a college frat boy. She is kind of offended, but then she hears him out. Basically, they get into an arrangement, and this just worked so well for me. The steam was there and it was good. Usually characters who are like a bit of a mess and you kind of see them not purposely be a mess, but also not purposely not be a mess. Those kind of characters usually really annoy me, and I don't usually enjoy reading from that kind of perspective. But I liked Christina. Something about her, she was very relatable. I liked her point of view. I liked reading about it. I liked seeing like her whole life, seeing how it all kind of worked itself out. And I mean, I also really liked the plot of this. I thought it was really well. I just thought this was really, really great. And I picked this book up randomly off a TikTok recommendation for a Smart Salon episode, and I did not expect to find a book that I absolutely loved. Like, I absolutely loved this. I think this was really, really great. If you're not opposed to very explicit NSFW smutty scenes, then maybe you could get into this. I would recommend it. It really took me by surprise. It was really good. And I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I have to mention The Lola and the Millionaires, part 1 and 2. Omegaverse smut. Didn't think I'd like it. Absolutely loved it. Also cried reading that too. Didn't want to mention it though earlier, but I have to mention it. Absolutely did not expect to love that at all, but I really did. The next question is, who is your favorite new author? And this can either be a debut author or a new to you author. I'm kind of going to mention two authors that aren't entirely new to me, but have really become my favorite authors this year. I've mentioned her once before, I have to mention her again. Samantha Shannon, fantasy. I think she's probably my favorite fantasy writer at this point. I've only read 3 of her books. Not that she has a whole lot out, but everything she does is just so good. Incredible top tier fantasy writer. And then I have to mention Talia Hibbert, romance writer, the queen of romance, dare I say it. Technically, I read my first Talia Hibbert book last year. I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Take a Hint, Danny Brown. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I read both of those last year. Thought Get a Life, Chloe Brown was I'm gonna reread it though, and I think I'm gonna like it a lot more the second time around. Absolutely loved Take a Hint, Danny Brown, but I don't know why I didn't pick up any of her other books last year. First half of 2021, I went on a Talia Hibbert binge. I've read almost every single one of her books now, and I don't regret it. Her stuff is so good. Diverse, steamy, emotional romance. If you read romance at all and you haven't read a Talia Hibbert book, what are you doing? I will never shut up about Talia Hibbert. She's just so great. Speaking of Talia Hibbert, the next question is a book that has made you happy, and for this, there are probably a few that I could choose, but I really want to mention Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which is the third and final book in Talia Hibbert's Brown Sisters series. This came out, I think, in March of 2021, and this was just so sweet. Eve is, again, kind of one of those characters whose life is a little bit of a mess, but she is so funny and like so endearing. You really cannot hate her. I absolutely loved Eve's story, and Jacob was such a grump to Eve's little ray of sunshine, and it was just so sweet. Great diversity rep in this, as always, like every Talia Hibbert book. Great steam, also like every Talia Hibbert book. This is kind of, as I said, sunshine grump trope, but also kind of enemies to lovers. This was just really great, and it made me very happy reading this. Absolutely adored it. 5 stars. And then kind of just to quickly wrap things up, I thought I'd talk about some of the releases coming out in the second half of 2021 that I am looking forward to. So book coming out in July that I'm looking forward to, which I actually think came out today, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chang. This is a fantasy, which if I remember correctly is pitched as Mulan meets the Song of Achilles. So excited to get my hands on that and read it. August release I'm looking forward to, The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang. This is the 3rd book in her series. I don't know if it has a name, but there's the Kiss Quotient, the Bride Test, and then finally the Heart Principle. In September, The Love Hypothesis by Hazlewood is coming out. This, I believe, is meant to be kind of an enemies to lovers. I think Kylo Ren fanfic inspired kind of story, I think, but set in a science lab. Either way, it sounds cute and fun, and I'm excited to pick it up. October, I have to mention Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer Armentrout comes out. This is the first book in the spin-off series for the For Blood and Ash universe, so I don't know how excited I really am for this, but I definitely will be picking it up. And then in November, Our Violet Ends by Chloe Gong comes out. This is the second and I believe final book in the These Violent Delights duology. I read These Violent Delights, I think I actually read that this year, at the start of this year, potentially the end of last year. Either way, I read it kind of recently, and I mean, kind of like everyone else, I absolutely loved it, so I absolutely cannot wait for the sequel to come out. I feel like it's gonna hurt me, and I'm kind of scared, but mostly very excited. I genuinely feel like my voice is dying on me, so that's all that I want to talk to you guys about today. Just a cheeky little mid-year wrap-up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to comment any of your reading stats for the first half of the year down in the comments, answer any of these questions. Whatever, come chat to me about books. I would love to hear from you guys. I cannot wait to talk to you guys in the second half of this year about all the great books that I am apparently going to be reading according to the Magic 8 Ball. But before that, I will see you guys with another video sometime soon. Bye!